Regarding the indictments on Bryon Hefner, do you think that Stan Rosenberg needs to step down so the legislature can focus on things like this new bill?
I think, first of all of the information that's been brought forward associated with this is distressing, and I continue to appreciate the fact that several people who had been harassed and abused came forward and made their case on this one. I also believe the work that's been done here by the district attorney and the indictments that have been delivered are important ones that need to be followed through to completion. With respect to Senator Rosenberg, I believe that anything associated with him directly needs to be dealt with either through the investigation that's being done by the Senate itself, which has been kind of lost in some of this discussion, and by the work that's being done by the DA and by the Attorney General. If that turns up information that implies or suggests that he was aware of or knew about this stuff, then at that point, yeah, I think he should resign.
Do you think that these indictments will have any weight on that ethics investigation?
Well, I'm assuming that I don't know exactly what's going on with respect to the ethics investigation. I'm assuming they're talking to many of the same people. But of course, I would anticipate that the information that's made available through the indictments would end up being part of the ethics investigation as well. And as I said, you know, people need to be held accountable for their actions with respect to this stuff. And if it turns out that other people in the Senate were involved or participated or knew and didn't do anything, then that all has to be factored into the decision-making process. Absolutely.
Are you concerned about the business
government to ensure that people were not harmed when dealing with the state government? Have you thought about that?
Well, I think the updated documentation and the new rules that were put in place by the House were a good start for the House. We completely redid all the state executive branch rules and guidelines and trainings with respect to sexual harassment, and every agency in the executive branch has a person whose fundamental job is to be available to anybody who's dealing with any issue or complaint associated with sexual harassment, and we have to have a zero tolerance policy for it across government, period.
Governor, do you have any concerns about the business of the state getting done? I mean, the Senate is in such turmoil and you guys are entering an important time. Do you have concerns they'd be able to get everything done, need to get done, given they have a whole branch of the government that's in chaos?
Well, I certainly think there's a lot on the agenda. We just talked in here about the CARE Act, which is an important second piece to our battle against the opioid epidemic. We have a big housing bill that's going to make it possible for us to create 135,000 new units of housing in a state that desperately needs it over the course of the next several years. I think we have bond legislation pending. There's a whole bunch of bills that are pending, and as I said upstairs, there's about 100 days where you can expect the legislature to be in session between now and the time they break at the end of July. And I think it's really important that all these issues get aired, and I think all the issues get addressed, and I think it's going to be really important that the legislature find a way, and we'll certainly do whatever we can to help them with this, to deliver on their agenda by the end of the session. I mean, it's a 2-year session. I get the fact that in a 2-year session, a lot of the more complicated and substantive work ends up getting done toward the end. I'm looking forward to reviewing the criminal justice bill. I'm hoping that the CSG bill comes out of that as a companion piece. That was a big item on the legislative agenda at the start of the year. But there's a lot that's left to be done here, and time's running out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay.